Hi everybody, this is Christy. I am the Intimate Warrior. I thank you so much for stopping by, and as always, I send you love. In yesterday's video, I spoke about the breath and how I am even really trying to, in my life, it's been making me focus more on my breath again. Yes, I tried to early on in my practices when I began to see what was happening with me, to really sit with myself, meditate. We call it meditation. And that's also where we can hopefully develop our sixth sense and in receiving visions. But meditation in itself, there's a lot to it that comes into play. Meditation helps you to focus on breathing, so that in time you will actually understand what the breath is all about in relationship to you and the spirit itself of God itself. And you will learn this throughout your process. Hopefully you're going to understand all of it throughout your process. And meditation, again, it's not just about slowing down your breath. It's about feeling what that breath does to you. And so I briefly mentioned how when I actually take the time to sit and breathe with however many seconds, minutes it is, there's a fire that overcomes me. This fire now that overcomes me, this heat that overcomes within me now, it's very similar to the blissful states that you receive throughout your awakening process, your evolution that you are going through. The thing that you have to really watch out for is that this bliss becomes very intoxicating. It is so beautiful to feel that blissful state. It's a high. It is a high that just makes you feel, oh my gosh, so out of body, that every single thing is just going to be okay now because I feel so awesome. And you're going to feel these sensations throughout your process where it is just so intoxicating. Hear these words: intoxicating and being drunk, okay? Intoxication and drunk. That's what it's also speaking about in the Bible, about being drunk, a drunkard. We don't want to fall in love with these blissful states, but it feels so good. It really does. In the very beginning, when I was feeling those sensations, I was like, oh my goodness, God, this really feels awesome. How can I keep this sensation going? Because now I know that this is you here giving me something. And it quickly goes away. We don't keep those blissful states. We don't keep them. And that in itself should teach you about it isn't even yours to begin with. I mentioned that in my yesterday's video as well about doing that exchange. Me learning now what this knowledge means, that it was handed down to me. And now what am I going to do with every single thing that I have learned? And it's not about me teaching you or spreading the word. It's not about that. Now, my lesson, my knowledge that's been given into my body now, am I going to keep it for myself? Am I going to keep this feeling? Okay, and if you want to say feeling of accomplishment to make you kind of understand where I'm coming from. This feeling of accomplishment, this pride that now I have done all of this work. Yay! Giving myself a pat on the back. That right there in itself can make the ego develop all over again. And I mentioned again in my other video previously is about who are you following? The virgin or the whore? And this is, I think it's in relationship with still the sixth tarot card of indecision. Now, the number 6 does work with the spinal canal of Vav, but it also works with, what is it? It also works with the sixth sphere of the Tree of Life, which works with the heart. And if we are abusing the Tree of Knowledge, we're taking Adam, of course, which is the spine and the fluid that is given from heaven, and we are depleting it within our sexual region, and taking it into earth and just allowing it to dry. And that means you're also dragging down the spirit of the self. So as I was mentioning the breath yesterday, it ties into today's video about the breath. And it also will tie into, I guess, the 40 days where Jesus is in the wilderness, or tempted within the wilderness. But also, Jesus was baptized in the River Jordan by John the Baptist. So John was present before Jesus' arrival, yet Christ was always before him. Isn't that what John the Baptist states? So Christ is going to become baptized by Jesus, but then Jesus, of course, goes back to the wilderness, and he goes through those temptations, and then Christ goes and performs his baptism. His baptism, too, for us, is the baptism of fire and spirit. We know that John the Baptist did it with water, and Jesus does the higher baptism. And we're going to go through these levels of baptisms, again, through different levels of where we currently are. It all goes into the same spot to where we are. So again, if you've been baptized at a kindergarten level, and this is why I told you not to compare your journey. There's no right or wrong. No one's better than or lesser than. It is what it is. You are at the level of your understanding. So if you go to the baptism at your kindergarten level, you are still going to go back to the same spot where you were of a baptism, but it's done at a higher level. And I hope that makes sense to you. So as I'm speaking about this breath, yes, last night I sat with myself and I focused on more of this breathing connection. And I paid attention again to more of that sensation that I feel. So now when I receive those blissful states, which it's very, very sparingly, I don't receive them as often as I used to, or they're not as intense as they used to be, or I don't wish for them. I guess I should say that I don't wish for it as often as I used to in the very beginning. I was like, that for me was my sign. Oh my gosh, God, where are you? Why did you go away from me? And then I began to learn, well, hold on. I probably shouldn't become attached to this sensation. Attachment leads to wanting more of something. Even though it makes us feel really, really good, it makes us feel connected to something. It really does. But watch out. It can become tricky. It's your test to what do you want to hold on to? Do you really want to find a greater connection with God, or you want to hold on to this great feeling? So when I do receive these sensations, I sit with myself, and I am more at an observing sensation here. I am just allowing it to feel as a bystander, if you will, looking at something, feeling something. And that's exactly what I do even when I am receiving messages, my visions. I'm trying to see it without having a reaction to it. Because if you have a reaction to it, it means that you now have to deal with that reaction. Just like in our everyday experiences, if you are reacting to your experiences, you have something to clear. And I do. I still have my reactive moments. And I'm still training myself to not react so much, because then I know, okay, well, you still have something to work through, Christy. So the people in our lives, the situation in our lives are really there to teach us something. You really, really have to be grateful for those experiences. So last night, going to bed, I really couldn't sleep right away, and I was focusing on my breath. And I was like, my breathing, something has changed in my breath tonight. And something else I want to mention is that, because it's in relationship with this and making sense, that what I have been going through is a very parched mouth. Only when I'm going to sleep. For about the first 30 minutes to an hour, 2 hours of me attempting to sleep and lay down, my throat gets so dry. I've been dealing with that, I'm going to say a month maybe. I don't really know how long, but I know I have been. And it's been so annoying. No amount of water or anything has been able to cure it. I've come to think, I was thinking about this as well. I'm like, well, it's becoming dry. This area is becoming dry. And maybe something else is receiving something. Because the superior waters of heaven is within our throat. If we're using the word and using the word properly, this is the divine knowledge that is given. But this is the divine knowledge that has to be divided and given back into something else. The superior waters up here have to go and water Egypt, if you will, the dry land. That's how knowledge from heaven is given to knowledge at earth. And we decide, what are we going to do with that knowledge? I'm going to hand it back to God, because God was so gracious with his time in teaching me about something, and I'm going to hand it back. I'm going to allow this water to go back into knowledge and make its way back up into heaven again. You're being selfless with this, not selfish with it. So because we get those blissful states again, we can become selfish with it and want it and want it. I have to have that state of feeling, that emotion, that sensation. Or, okay, I appreciate and I'm grateful for this moment that you have taught me that this is available to me. I don't need this. I want to learn instead. Give me the knowledge about what this means. I'll hand over this state. So this dryness has been going on for some time, and it wasn't as bad last night. I was laying there thinking, oh wow, my throat isn't dry. And then as I began to say that, it started to crack just a little bit, but not so much, because you don't want to get ahead of yourself. Even if you notice, oh wow, I'm handling my situations really well, you're also going to be tested, because now here you think that you are doing something extremely well, and possibly that you think you're better than something or someone else, but we're not. We have just learned something and gotten over this hurdle. Now let's just, be grateful for this moment, because it can always change from second to second, minute to minute, hour to hour, whatever it is. And I was laying there again, and I'm going to push pause to take a drink. I was receiving kind of a blissful sensation last night. Not too powerful that I became intoxicated, but powerful enough to make me aware of its existence within me. Let's go ahead and talk about being intoxicated. And that's, again, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, about being a drunkard. The sensation really, really is. It really does make you feel drunk. And you know how it is when you drink a lot. You do become intoxicated. And it really feels good at that moment. But then later on, when you're sobering up it depending on how much you have, drank for the day, evening, you don't feel so good. And some people who really have an addiction, because they don't feel good, they wake up instantly and begin to drink again. And that cycle is always and constant. I know I learned my lesson about what it means to really drink. And then I know, okay, I'm starting to feel something. And now here, I know that if I'm feeling like this now, and I'm not saying I drink right now, I don't drink on a daily basis. I did go out a week ago or something with my husband to test myself, and I'll tell you the story about that. But before I began to become aware that I was awakening here, I did have an addiction to alcohol, and also taking painkillers to add into the effect of how I was feeling, because I was dealing with so much anxiety and didn't love myself in the environment, all kinds of reasons, and dealing with physical pain, of course, chronic pain, and trying to make myself just feel good in that moment. But learning about the consequences, even back then, drinking to a stupor and waking up, the room is spinning, and you know what it's like to have a true hangover and not feeling good. Are you learning about that sensation? The sensation is so good when you are doing it, but afterwards is miserable. There's a lesson in it, and having so much intoxication. There's something that happens when you are highly intoxicated, and that's exactly what happens when we are transmuting our energy. It becomes so intoxicating that it can go either way. It could be used for good or used for bad. And I kind of knew about this knowledge back then, but I wasn't really, I knew, but I didn't know. It's like faith. I knew about faith, but I didn't understand faith. So I hope wherever you are, that you can really use what I just said to help yourself. And since I'm talking about, drinking, my husband told me a couple of weeks ago that he was going to go listen to a friend of ours who was in a bluegrass band, at this brewery that's like 5 minutes from our house. And he goes, I'm going to call, Shayna and Morgan and all these people and see if they want to go. I was really upset. And I didn't mention anything. I just let it go, let it go. And every time he would bring it up, and I would get even more upset. And so one day, I eventually said something. I'm like, look at you. You're going to go do something, and you haven't even invited me, your wife. You're calling Shayna, you're calling Morgan, you're calling everybody else to go to this. But not once have you invited me, your wife, who you say you love so much, just getting so angry because I was feeling left out about it. He goes, well, Christy, you're my wife. Of course you're allowed to go, but you don't do this kind of stuff anymore. You know what? But I'm like, you don't even give me a chance. You don't even offer it, though. When you ask me to do something with you, you're showing me that you care, or that I'm on your mind, right? And so I ended up, okay. He says, well, you're going to go, right? So he kept telling everybody else that I was going to go too. So I put my foot in my mouth, is what I did. After he started telling everybody that I was going, I was like, great. Now I have to go, right? I made him think that I wanted to go, and I made it such a big deal about it. So now I have to go. Now here, I haven't been anywhere in 5 to 6 years, other than, my husband and I do go to the beach for vacation occasionally throughout the summertime. But even then, we're pretty much just staying in the hotel. We might go out to eat dinner, of course, but we like to stay in the hotels and order in, just because we're so tired from our life, the way that it has been. And it's a true way to just kind of relax. We sit on the balcony, just look at the scenery, watching the people, and we have fun that way, just being together side by side. And I go there, I might pack, 2 weeks worth of clothes, but I'm wearing the same thing. pretty much every single day because we don't go anywhere. It's like what I do here. I have maybe 2 or 3 outfits that I wear because I'm mostly at home. I have my work clothes. I have my lounge wear, exercise outfits, whatever it is. No more than a handful of things that I tend to constantly pick because I'm working in the house or I'm going outside and working, and I get dirty. I get really dirty. So I don't have, of course, I've gained some weight too back, and I don't have the same clothes that I used to go, and I don't buy a lot of clothes any longer. There's no need because I have been homebound. So now I'm like, well, great. Now you have to try and find something to wear, Christy. Now you have to fix your hair. Now you have to put on some makeup, look presentable, whatever it is. I put my foot in my mouth. And so I was feeling bad, gosh darn it. Now I made a terrible decision. I made my husband feel bad. Now he thinks he has to take me. Even if he doesn't want to take me, he has to take me now. And now you put so much stress on yourself. And then I said, well, no, I have to change my attitude. Even when you're making a bad mistake or you have chosen a bad mistake or a decision, chosen something that really you don't want to do, but you do it anyway, turn it around to be more positive. I know I have a behavior issue around other people. And I still wanted to test myself. How are you around people you haven't seen for so long? And how are you around people you haven't seen for so long who like to drink? Or who like to talk bad about people, whatever it is. Let's go put yourself into a situation. Let's see your behavior. Yes, I did drink, okay? And I composed myself, but I did drink more than I probably would have on a normal basis if I, wanted to drink. It was, brewery beer is really strong compared to the light beer that I buy here from my husband, and or that he drinks, that is. And so I knew it was going to be really strong. So what 3 beers there is really like 6 anyway, and 6 stronger beers. But that's what I had. I ended up drinking 3 brewery beers, which are 16 ounces, so it comes out to 6 cans. And I got home and I was like, oh gosh, I haven't even eaten all day, because then that was a point or a moment when nothing was sitting with me in my stomach. So I wasn't fasting, but that day I was fasting because I was having some stomach issues. So I was just kind of drinking, which of course makes you more drunk when you haven't eaten anything. I came home, we ate our dinner, went to bed, and I wasn't, feeling like the room was spinning, but I knew I couldn't sleep, and I was having a headache. The brewery beer always gives me a headache, so I was up most of the night, unable to sleep. So, of course, that was my consequence of doing something. But I knew I learned about myself, and I wasn't drunk falling down like I normally was. And I'm not saying that you can drink on your process, and I'm not saying you can't. You can learn a lot about your behavior, no matter what it is that you are choosing. And I know now, even when I don't drink and haven't drank maybe in a couple of years, because it's been a couple of years since I've actually, I think, had a drink or anything, drank more than a beer. I think I've probably only had a couple of sips here and there. But I did not become drunk like I used to drink and become drunk. One beer would have me really crazy, because your body really gets to a point of being able to utilize, no matter what it is that you're doing, the food eventually that you decide to eat, your body is going to be able to digest it properly and utilize it properly to the point that it doesn't affect you. And that takes a lot of transmutation to get to that point, a lot of inner knowing. You have to really learn your steps, learn where you are, that knowledge, and just the energy within your body begins to change. and you're able, you notice, okay, so you're noticing your strength is what's taking place. Not that, okay, well, now I can become a drunk. That's not what I'm saying at all. But you notice the strength that you have developed through purifying your body. So I did do that a couple of weeks ago, or whatever, however long it's been. And again, from time to time, we're going to be tested. Of course, my test was probably to not be jealous that my husband was going somewhere, to not be upset that he didn't invite me, to not feel unloved, alone, all those things. To begin with, left out, it's not my lifestyle. It's not the way that I want to live my life. But since I got myself into that mess, I wanted to see, and I did have fun. Don't get me wrong, I did have fun. I had fun with my husband and fun with other people. It's just not me, though, to do that all the time. It's our life experiences. And if you're learning something in your life experience, then it's okay. So in my previous video, I also spoke about, I guess, my moment of clarity between me and mommy, the two M's, the two waters, the superior water and the inferior water, and what it means in relationship to me sacrificing it, that intoxication. And I said, okay? We say with our breath. Our breath, without our breath, we would not be able to produce a sound of our voice, our breath. So I know that in my path, I'm having breathing issues, or the development of breathing. So I could have been in a person that says, oh my gosh, you are completely sick. You got to go to the doctor, you got to do this. And yes, because I have been a person who was born here with asthma, I have taken care of my breath. So if I need to use my inhaler, I have chosen to use my inhaler, because it's so scary to not be able to breathe. It really is. And unless you know what I'm talking about, it's terrifying. And I've had to remove that terrifying aspect of it. It's like drowning. When we are unable to breathe, it's like we are just constantly drowning in water. And so that in itself, of course, you guys know my story, if you followed me, that I have always had a fear of water, of drowning in water, because I have nearly drowned a couple of times as a child. But drowning in water has a lot to do with not utilizing your breath properly, of course, but still works with what? Mem. And drowning in mem. So as I'm saying that, we're going to always work with the waters and mem, and conquering those waters. So it's like Jonah in the well, of course, Noah in the flood, Moses in the wilderness, and Christ in the wilderness. There's so many aspects. And of course, the Samaritan woman at the well. We can have living waters through our choices, in our knowledge, that is. So the awe thing that I'm talking about is like a sigh, isn't it? And I used to sigh a lot when I was younger. I realize that now. Boredom really makes you sigh. Excuse me. Boredom makes you sigh. Whatever reason life is making me bored, you tend to sigh a lot. But also when you're relaxed, in a relaxed state, you might go. Also, you can go when you're like, oh my gosh, when you are shocked because you have learned something. there's so much depth to just even the word ah. And that deals with, again, if you understand even how our voice is formed, it is through the breath, the spirit of the breath. And let's see if I can make all of this connection now. But as I'm laying there, I'm connecting more with that sensation that I was feeling last night, not to the point of intoxication, but present and more comforting than intoxicating, making itself known again without dragging me down. I realized how calm my breath was. Not so labored, and I didn't feel like I was losing my breath, but gaining a breath. And God breathes into our mouth, or nostrils really, and gives you the breath of life. Because now really the breath of life is already living within us. It's already there and present. But when you go, it's like when you take your breath in, it's, you're, of course it's okay, but it's like, air fills your lungs. But something, when it comes out, like when the baby is born, the doctor smacks the baby's bottom and the baby begins to cry. An awareness of itself. And that's what it's like when you are receiving the breath of life. And I've gotten chills from this. It's an awareness of life within you. And I'm getting emotional here. So it's becoming. My breath last night was more unified, not labored, not shaky, not closing up because of asthma. My throat wasn't closing. And I tried to explain to my husband what takes place really when I'm having an asthma attack. Your throat, the airways close, and you can't breathe. It's just suffocation. And it's your body just produces more of mucus or whatever it is, inflammation, and your airways close. You just can't breathe. It's terrifying to being in that state. And things were becoming more clear through my breath last night, to the point of that making that connection between the mouth and the air in my lungs. I was very grateful last night. I ended up also hearing, giving the words, and now I was reciting it, that she looks like you. So I want to actually talk about your higher self. You hear that phrase, your higher self. And that's really the highest aspect of who you are as an individual. And some people will tell you that, oh my God, I completely changed. Of course, you are changed. But people look and like, oh my God, my life is going to completely change. Well, yeah, it does. Because you change as an individual. So you can be who you are you're going to be who you are in your body, in your shape, in your form. Whatever you look like right here today in this very moment. And if you woke up looking all crazy, your hair is all crazy, you're probably not even dressed. I know for myself, I haven't even gotten dressed. I'm in my lounge wear, my pajamas, whatever. My hair is up in its bun that my husband just doesn't like. I haven't made myself up. I'm not beautiful to the outside world, but I'm beautiful. The person that we look in the mirror and we always see all the time, are you seeing somebody who you can't stand? Or are you seeing somebody that God has created? You're going to be the same person in that mirror. Nothing might ever change on the outside, but on the inside, you are completely different. The birth of your soul within you is someone who is you. It always has been you. But it's completely different. It's only different because we have forgotten it. We've forgotten what our soul is. We've forgotten ourselves. And removing all of the pain that we have ever experienced in our lifetime or lifetimes, all of those bad seeds that were implanted within our mind and our hearts from all those generations to come, generations before us, we wiped out. And in wiping them out, we simultaneously planted greater seeds that can bring greater fruit into our life that makes us see something else. Yet, that has always been. Don't expect something else in your life to change. And I'm not saying it won't change, because we have that option in this reality, the freedom to choose. But however you are right here in this moment of your life, in it, you can find that huge gratefulness within it and be okay. And it's all going to be okay. It really is. So when I heard she looks like you, and again, I'm not saying I am here. I know I'm working here. And it takes time. In an adjustment period, lessons to go through. And I mentioned that in yesterday's video. Those intervals. Levels of understanding. It helps us get over those little hurdles. And then you're going to have that moment of development again. And still becoming something. And then things are going to kind of like plateau. And you're going to wonder, where are you at? And how are you going to get to the next level? And then you're going to need another little push to get you there. So, let's see. Like I said, I did write some things down this morning, which was nice. So I've already mentioned that without the breath, there is no voice. And that's it. The breath, and then there is no voice. So I wanted to tell you the story about after my car accident. I had so much, I had so much going on. I ended up getting a shoulder repair, lots of things done within my back, and of course medications for my nerve damage because of my spine issues, and cervical neck surgery. You're told that everything's going to be okay when you have surgeries and that there's minimal risk to it. Well, 1 in a billion chances will come out, Christy, that something will be wrong with you. I was scared, of course. It's always terrifying to go underneath a knife and be unconscious and out of control of yourself, not in control of yourself. So I'm in my room at this moment, I believe, and the doctor comes in. I'm just waking up from my anesthesia, and he asks me how I'm doing. And I go to speak. And I didn't have a voice. And I think this took place back in 2010 or something, around that time frame. And I saw the way that my doctor looked because I couldn't get a word out. And he was like, oh my gosh, so much shock on his face, but he put his hand on my hand and said, don't worry. It's going to be okay, and so, 9 months later, my voice finally came back. I had to write what I wanted down. Sorry. I had to write every single thing down. communicating with my husband, or just not talking at all, or my son just not talking at all. It was pretty rough. But it was also, it was nice because I didn't have to argue with anybody. I didn't have to scream at anybody, do this, do that. Why aren't you hurt? Why are you hurting me? Whatever it was. And so, I learned a lot about that time frame. And one day I was I was getting ready to, my husband asked me about something, or I forget what it was precisely, but I was getting ready to write it down. But I also was mouthing it. And I spoke out of nowhere. The voice was given back to me. Miraculously. And I was so excited. So excited to start yelling at everybody again. So that's my story about that. And you see, I've been learning ever since then about the proper use of my voice. And it's taken me all these years to, of course, 5-6 years ago is when I began really focusing more intentionally on things. But it's still a lot. I didn't learn a lot, even then, even now, the significance. And yes, I've tried to refrain from saying certain things, of course, curse words, trying to be more loving in my voice. But, life happens. People say things, we react, it hurts, and there's an attitude. So I'm still working on all of that. I'm not saying it one bit. But I know there's been a significant change within myself since I posted my first video here in a long time. There's been a change in something. And I can feel this calmness and smoothness within myself. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to have an attitude tomorrow or later on today. It doesn't mean that. It means I do notice a change. And I'm going to try harder in still maintaining this portion of my individuality, my true self. Because that's what we're given. We're giving a glimpse, I guess, if you will, of our true self. And then our true self is still saying, hey, let's see if you've learned anything. And now here, we're going to throw out you some experiences. Well, the breath deals mostly with, you can call, there's several words for the breath. But I want to talk about, because the breath is also in relationship with Aleph, but also with Pe. And I'll speak with a lot about that, because Pe is in relationship with your mouth, but Pe in its masculine form is deals with Adam. But Pe, because it deals with the throat, and the mouth, is also in relationship with He, which is the feminine aspect of Eve. And of course, if we unite both of these individuals and create the divine knowledge, or the Star of David, because it's in union now with the Holy Spirit that has merged within itself here. You create the wind. But Aleph and Tav, to me, I was like, wait a minute, in the pictograph now, because I received like a sign of being connected together, a sealing together, a stitch together. And it made me recently think about Aleph, because the Aleph works with the breath, which is the lungs, of course. You have in Aleph the Vav, which signifies Adam, but you also have in Aleph two yods, the two dots, the dots of Daf, beginning of creation, if you will, that comes from Kether, or above the crown, but you also have it here in Yesod. The union between Vav and the two dots combined together create Aleph. And you can go the breath, the wind, everything, the point, all of it, the breath, God's word, God's breath existed before it all. The hovering about, that took place. And then I was like, well, you know what? Tav, before it was given in its modern version, of course, we know it signifies the cross. But in its imperfect state, the Tav can look like an Aleph, but more connected, if you will. So I did it again. My sister was texting me, and I thought I pushed pause, but kept, going. So I hit pause. Anyway, I messed up some of this video here, and I'm going to try and go back. I think I was trying to say that the Tav in its imperfect state or unstitched state is an Aleph. A broken Aleph, if you will. But the Aleph is never broken, so that's not what I'm trying to say either. It's kind of hard to explain, I guess. Through the Aleph, I guess you can say, is that the cross is formed or reestablished. The Aleph, the wind, the breath, the spirit, is the Vav in 2 yods. So I've already stated that the upper yod signifies the superior waters and the lower yod signifies inferior waters. So Doth and then Yesod working with Malkuth. The spine is Vav, which is the number 6, which is also Adam. You spell Adam with Aleph, Dalet, Mem. And you have to replace Adam or Aleph, Dam. Dam means blood, back into the womb. And so this binding, something kind of like I was explaining or trying to with this stitching that I ended up seeing, that it was being stitched together, hooked together, connected together, sealed together. Remember, God says he will place a seal upon you. And it also made me think about how in Mark 10:9, where therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. So that to me also, of course, you know that the marriage works in several layers, just like the soul works in several layers of your creation. It made me think about the Hebrew letter of Chet. Chet, when developed, receives a yoke. And Christ is that yoke that binds Zion and Vav together, which is male and female together, of the twin souls of you, of your energies, that is. But the Aleph of the breath, it comes again in several layers of your being, of your development, before it becomes the living soul. Because remember in Genesis 2:7, God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So what really is taking place is that when you are actually waking up to yourself, you are going to breathe it out. Breathe it out. Because you're given something which is already in development within ourselves. It already is in existence there. But when you breathe out, And so when I thought I was making the video, as I was talking about all of this, I felt that sort of comforting bliss rise into my throat. Because as I said, I've been dealing with lots of throat dryness, especially at night, but I am also at this very moment too. The return of the waters. We have to give back what is being given. Well, I guess we don't have to, but that's your choice. You can do whatever it is that you are choosing to do in your life for whatever reasons you want to do it. But to return back to heaven, return back to God, it has to be given back. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So Christ is that yoke that binds two superior things together. We can't go through the straight and narrow path without Christ present. Christ develops living waters within us. If you remember the verses about the Samaritan woman in the well. Jesus talks about the living waters that develop within us. And I guess before, I'm just going to go ahead and end it at this note, because I have completely forgotten everything that I had previously stated as I was trying to text my sister back and forth. My dad isn't doing too well, and we were trying to reach out to him to see what is going on and what we can do to assist in his care. You know, of course, my sister and I both live in separate states, and he does, so we are pretty far. And I know there's not so much that we can do, but except be there for him. So that's going on. That same breath of God's life is within us. It's the same breath that was breathed into Adam. And one day, we're all going to wake up and expel that breath and realize who we are. This is Christy. Much love, health, and healing your way. I am bringing purpose to your life. Take care.